So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are staying well. I hope you guys are safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, I wanted to do a quick video about what Jermall Charlo had to say about Canelo Alvarez. Jermall Charlo said, you know what, I'm happy for Canelo. I'm not going to sit here and say Canelo's ducking me. He's not ducking me. He's fighting Bivol. He's fighting a good guy. He's fighting a top fighter. You got to respect him. You got to give him credit. And you know what, you have to look, respect to Jermall Charlo for that interview, because a lot of you give Jermall a lot of criticism because, you know, these are guys that want to face Canelo Alvarez. But sometimes we as fans don't understand that Canelo's the top guy right now. All of these guys, the ceiling, and they should want to fight the best. They should want to fight who's perceived as the best, and that's Canelo Alvarez. So you can't blame them for chasing those fights. I think we get a bit frustrated because they're not fighting one another. But at the end of the day, they want to fight the best. They want to fight Canelo. But Jermall has been one of those guys that has given Canelo respect, both the Charlo brothers. I think Jermall's the one that's given. I think Jermall was vocal early on, but I think he's realized that, you know what, I'm probably not going to get the fight with Canelo by bashing him or slamming him in the media. I'm not one for, I think if someone's your rival and he's going to punch you in the face, I'm not one to say that you should be all respectful. Like, I'm not one on the opposite side where I think you should be swearing at his mother or swearing at his family. I think that's below the belt. But I'm also not the type that I think you should be like kissing ass almost in order to get a fight. No, I think you need to be, I think you need to be, you know, yeah, you respect the guy, he's a top fighter, but at the end of the day, you know, you want to beat him up when you get inside the ring, and that's how Jermall needs to be. I'm not all for like, praise him and, you know, kiss his feet just because he's a top fighter. No. You got to have self-respect. You got to say, no, I'm the man. Forget Canelo, I'm the man. You know, that's how you need to think. And I don't feel like you should be worried about disrespecting Canelo. And when I mean disrespecting him, I'm saying, yeah, I'll knock him out, I'll give him a lesson. These are all things that I feel like, as a fighter, whether we believe it would happen or not, or whether we believe Charlo or you know, whoever says it, Benavidez, they're delusional, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant in my opinion. I think the most important thing is for these guys to believe that they're the top dons, that they're the top guys, and that's how I look at it. Like, I feel like you as a fighter have got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then who's gonna believe in you? If you don't believe that you're gonna beat Canelo, then no one's gonna believe you. If you don't believe that you can do it, then already people don't think you're gonna beat Canelo anyway. So then people are gonna think, fans are gonna think that this guy ain't got no chance against Canelo. He don't even believe in himself. So yeah, you've got to believe that you can beat Canelo. You got to believe in your skills. But I do think that a lot of fans wanted Canelo to fight Charlo and Benavidez. Not like, in my opinion, it's not because they're better than Bivol. It's because of the fact that I think they've got more of a name. They're more well-known. Fans would have been more excited for those fights. Because unfortunately, Bivol, I don't know. Bivol does speak a little bit of English, but, you know, Benavidez and Charlo, you know, the promotion would have been good. They're more well-known to the boxing fans. It's just a much bigger fight. So you can understand why fans were a bit disappointed, you know. Like Caleb Plant, for example. Caleb Plant was relatively unknown. But the fight was big because they promoted the fight, and, you know, Canelo and him went back and forth, and it made for a good fight. But this is the thing, whereas someone like Bivol, there's not going to be no heat. There's not going to be no fire, because that's not the way Bivol is. That, you know, generally these Eastern Europeans are generally very laid back. You know, they're not the type of fighters that, you know, get involved in back and forth. Look at Khabib, for example. Look at Khabib. You know, Khabib he's a quiet guy. You know, he's not a guy one for trash talking, and he's not one to get involved. Canelo will get involved if you get involved with Canelo. You know, if you say something to Canelo, Canelo will bite back. But Bivol's not going to say anything to Canelo. So Canelo's not one to start disrespecting you unless you start disrespecting him. So Canelo will bite back only if you bite back. He's not one, whereas these Eastern Europeans like Khabib, you could say anything to him and he'll just be quiet. He'll just be quiet, you know, and he'll just take it out in the fight. And the same with guys like Bivol, Beterbiev. You can't really get under these guys' skin. These guys are very cool, calm characters. They don't get emotionally involved, like, you know, like a Paulie Malignaggi or someone like that, you know, Broner, and these they don't get themselves involved. You know, if you look at Maidana, for example, Maidana never got involved either in fights. You know, he was just calm. You know, with Broner was doing all this kind of crap, but Maidana didn't do anything. Didn't really react in the fight. He took it out. But that's what they do. That they're very cool, calm type of characters. So trash talking doesn't really work on those type of guys. They're very, like I said, they're very calm in their approach. For me, I just think the reason why people were upset is because of the fact that the fights were bigger. Benavidez and Charlo fights were bigger than the Bivol and Golovkin fight at this point. I think Canelo, if he had fought those guys, I think people would have been more excited for those fights. And I initially thought that, you know, Canelo would take that deal, because I just think that he probably thought that those are bigger fights. But Canelo, for me, probably I misunderstood him in the sense that he probably looks at legacy. He probably thinks that, you know what, those are bigger fights. Those are big legacy fights. Those are gonna enhance my legacy. You know, Charlo and Benavidez don't do anything for me. All I'll be doing is defending my title. You know, and people will say, well, he's doing that with Golovkin, but Golovkin they've got history. You know, they've got that beef there. And Canelo wants to end that. And a lot of people thought Golovkin won both fights. So Canelo probably wants to put a full stop to that as well. You know, they've got history, whereas Charlo and Benavidez, it's almost like opening up another chapter that he doesn't really need to open at this point. So, to be honest with you, look, I'm happy with the Bivol fight. To be honest with you, I would have been more happier with the Charlo fight. I think it would have been a bigger fight for my channel, for everything. I think it just would have been bigger for everyone involved in boxing, the fans, you know, YouTubers, everyone. You know, I think those fights are just much more. They're bigger because Charlo's a bigger name than Bivol. Not necessarily a better fighter, but a bigger name. So yeah, I am a little bit like, I would have been more excited for the Charlo fight, but in terms of a competitive fight, I think this is a much tougher fight than the Charlo fight. That, again, some people may disagree, but that's just the way I look at it. The Benavidez fight, I think Bivol, again, is a tougher fight. So for me, I'm not too unhappy with it. I'm actually okay with it. But in terms of Jermall Charlo praising Canelo, you know, I think anyone that knows a little bit about boxing knows that you can't really criticize Canelo and his run. Canelo has got a stellar resume. Canelo is doing unbelievable things in the sport of boxing, and I think you can't but admire the guy. You can't but praise the guy. You can't praise the guy enough, what he's done. You know, he became undisputed in such a short space of time. Now he's going up to light heavyweight, fighting a stellar champion in Dmitry Bivol. I just don't know how you can keep hating on the guy. I think it comes to a point where even if you're one of his competitors, you have to say, you know what, fair play to the guy. The guy's putting it on the line. Charlo, maybe is a fight down the line, maybe it's not. But Charlo's got to look at his career and say, you know what, I've got to get a move on. There's fights out there for me that will enhance my legacy, enhance my career, like an Andrade fight, like a Plant fight. And, you know, fighting Selecki's ain't going to do anything for his career, ain't going to do anything for his resume. You know, nobody's going to look back at that fight in years to come. It's not a legacy fight. So Charlo needs to, for me, Charlo can do better than that. And I feel like these guys, all of these guys need to take their careers into their own hands. Where, look, Mike Tyson said that if you want to fight somebody, the fight will happen. And what you've got to tell people around you, no, if I'm not fighting that guy, I'm not fighting. I want that guy, or it's not happening. So if Charlo says, I want Andrade, or I'm not fighting, I want Andrade, then I'm pretty sure the Andrade fight happens. But again, it generally, look, promoters say generally when two fighters want these fights will happen. Right? When these fights don't happen is when one of the guys don't want the fight. If Charlo wants to fight Andrade or wants to fight Plant, I'm pretty sure these fights will get made like that. Because at the end of the day, why wouldn't you? You know, it'll be a bigger payday. It means more to your career, your legacy. You know, if Charlo fights one of Plant, Benavidez, Andrade, Munguia, that would be the biggest name on his resume. That would be the biggest name on his resume. So why shouldn't he take that fight? Why shouldn't he look for those fights? That's the way I look at it. Why shouldn't he entertain those or run after or chase those fights? you know, because they would be the biggest fights. They'd be the biggest name on his resume. So surely, as a competitor, as somebody that wants to enhance his legacy, wants to get the biggest paydays out there, wants to potentially get the fight with the biggest star in the sport, Charlo beating a Plant, beating a Benavidez, beating an Andrade would help him secure that fight. Will help him, you know, get the fight with Canelo Alvarez, which is essentially what he wants. You know, I've seen a lot of channels now criticize Charlo, saying that Charlo just wants the Canelo fight or nothing. You know, he's not interested in any of the big fights. But at the end of the day, that might be the case. You know, when you've got a massive payday potentially out there, they may look, maybe PBC's plan. They may want to cash out on Charlo thinking that's a big fight, big payday. Or maybe they just generally believe that Charlo's got Canelo's number. You know, we just don't know. This is what I mean. So at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to Charlo fighting somebody, man. You know, I'm like I said, I haven't been excited for a Charlo fight. I've not been excited for an Andrade fight. You know, I've not been excited for a Benavidez fight. You know, I am kind of semi-excited about the Lemieux fight. You know, just depending on what Lemieux turns up. But the point I'm trying to make is these guys are not involved in big, epic, great fights, and they should be. They should be involved in much bigger, better fights than what we're getting. And it's disappointing at this particular point that they're not getting in the ring with each other. I do hope that, you know, we will eventually get to see them all in the ring. But we just have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see how it all plays out. We just have to wait and see how all these things pan out. But, you know, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see how Canelo Bivol plays out. I'm looking forward to see how, you know, what happens with Plant, Charlo, Andrade, and Munguia and these guys. Do they fight each other? Do they get in the ring with each other? But look, respect to Charlo giving Canelo praise, crediting Canelo, saying that, you know, you've got to respect what Canelo is doing. But at the end of the day, you've got to, for me, it's time for them guys to step up and show how good they are. At this particular moment, we don't know how good they are. We don't know what whether they're the real deal. You know, by fighting each other, you know, you're cancelling each other out. You're showing us who's the best out of the bunch. And then Canelo, you've got a claim to fight Canelo Alvarez. Not to say they haven't now, but it's just whether Canelo picks them. But then the fans will start demanding those fights and demanding, you know, they fight Canelo Alvarez. So we have to wait and see how this all plays out. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.